I don't know why, but I am so excited for this upcoming year of books. And today's video is my January pile of books that I want to share with you. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I'm a mom to 4. I love to homeschool, I love to read good books, and I love to share both of those things on this channel. So if you also like those things, please consider subscribing. So like I was saying, I am really excited for this upcoming month. I have just an amazing stack of books I want to show you. Actually, I kind of have 3 things going on. So I'm going to show you my TBR jar. In just a second, I'll explain it, as well as the books I'm currently reading and 2 books I have for book clubs, which are really awesome books. So I'm going to share all of that. Let me start with the TBR jar. So I mentioned this in my goals video, which went up last week. And I just wanted to make a TBR jar. So it's a wee little TBR jar. And really what I wanted to do was I wanted to put all the books in here that are on my physical TBR. So the ones that are on my shelves that I have not read. And granted, there aren't that many. I think it was, I didn't count when I put this together yesterday. I think it's around 40. So it's not terrible. I'm not trying to get it down to 0. I just know that I have a lot of books on my shelf that I want to read. And I kind of tend to have like squirrel moments, or like everybody's reading certain books and I really want to read those books. So I put this together just to kind of keep myself on track with some of the books I did buy last year, or have had for longer than that, that I want to get to. I'm going to pull 1 book a month is my plan. Nothing too crazy, no prompts, no anything. I'm just going to pull a book out of my jar, 1 a month. Okay, I pulled The Lost Jewels. I just got this for Christmas, but actually what I'm going to do this month, which might be a little different, is I'm not going to pull any historical fiction books. The reason is because I am going to be co-hosting the Historathon with Amanda over at the Curly Reader in February. And so I'm going to be reading historical fiction books all next month. So I think I'm going to put this back and then I'll pull something else. But anyway, look for the announcement video next week. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. It's going to be so much fun. All right, so I will pull another one. Get on out. Maybe I picked too small of a jar. Okay. All right, here's another one. It's Life After Life, which is kind of historical fiction, but it also is more science fiction, so I'm going to count it. I've been wanting to read this for a while, so I will put that on my pile. Yay, that's exciting. So Life After Life. So this is Kate Atkinson, and I have heard such good things about this book. It is a book set in the early 1900s, I believe. Yes, and it's about a girl who is born and dies and then is kind of reborn. But the trick with her is that her life takes different paths. So from what I understand, it's like if she comes to an intersection and turns left during one life, then she's murdered or something. And if she turns right, she lives to 80, something to that notion. So I believe after she lives and dies a number of years, she starts to want to get involved in changing something or changing history, is what I understand. And I think it is around like World War I time frame. So I'm looking forward to picking this up. Mind you, I just included the first 15 lives of Harry August in my worst books of the year video. And this kind of reminds me of that, but I have heard through one of you guys that this does a better job. So I'm really hoping I like this better than I like that one. Okay, as for books that I am currently reading, I have a number going, so I just thought it would be better to just include those than to worry about finishing them up. First, I am listening to Codename Helen, or Helen, I'm not sure quite how to say it, but it is a historical fiction. So I guess I do have one historical fiction, but I'm about a quarter of the way through the book and I'm really liking it. It's set during World War II. It's about this woman who becomes a spy. And this is a historical fiction book. So this is fiction. It's based loosely, I believe, off of a real person. And what's unique about her story is she started in France. I mean, she moved there for a journalism job, and then this was kind of late 30s. And so all the rumblings of World War II were starting to happen. And then she started to report on it and get involved in some way. So I haven't got to that part of the book, but she gets involved or gets recruited in some way to help the resistance. And so the story, at least at the beginning, is starting where it's focusing on her in that like late 30s. She meets her husband, kind of her life. It's very interesting. But at the same time, it's going through her as a spy, like one of her code names in maybe 1944. It's going through the mission she is on at that point in time to infiltrate back into France, and for her to hopefully meet back up with her husband. And it is really good so far. I have been really enjoying it. We'll see how it lands, but her character has just been really fun and really entertaining. So I have liked that book a lot. Okay, so there's that one. And I'm also reading, too many books. I am reading this book, The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. So this is book 2 in the Mistborn series. I'm not too far. I'm borrowing this from my sister. Thanks, Megs. And so the first book, I loved it. I read it over kind of like December. It was just one of those, I was feeling like a fantasy book and I had it on my shelves and you all encouraged me to read it. So I picked it up and I just couldn't put it down. It was so interesting. I've always been a little unsure if I like kind of that high fantasy, big world building sort of idea. But I felt like the first book did such a good job of bringing you into the world without a ton of details. The magic system seemed pretty straightforward in my opinion. And then the storyline was really good. It was like this heist story and it was just pretty fast paced and you got to know the main character, and the main character's name is Vin and she has powers. And then in the first book they were trying to defeat the big bad great lord guy. And I won't obviously tell you what happened there, but it was so good that I was trying to figure out how I was going to buy it on Amazon. And then my sister, I saw her over Christmas. She's like, oh, I just bought those. And I was like, oh, can I borrow those? Because I was so drawn into the story that I want to keep reading it. And I am definitely a person who, once I start a series, I just want to keep reading it. I'm not very good at like starting and stopping and leaving series undone, especially if the series is already finished. So The Well of Ascension is book 2, and I believe there's only 3. So I'm super jazzed about getting back into that world. Okay, next on the books that I have been reading is The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. This was one of the books I was looking forward to the most last year when it came out in the fall. And I loved The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I just really like his writing. It's kind of historical fiction meets mystery. And it's always a little bit confusing, and it's starting out that way. And it has to do with a boat, a ship that is taking this prisoner across, I forgot exactly from where to where. He's being held captive to go await trial somewhere else. And there's something sinister going on the boat. I still don't quite know what it is, and I'm not sure if it's revealed anytime soon because I'm still pretty early in the book. But I'm really liking the detail and just the atmosphere of the book. He's just so good at writing a book where I feel like I'm on the ship and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? And I'm just very much drawn into the story. So I'm looking forward to finishing this one. Okay, the next book I got for Christmas, and I pretty much picked it up right away because I have been wanting to read this forever. And it's called Teaching from Rest, A Homeschooler's Guide to Unshakable Peace by Sarah Mackenzie. And I just love this author. She's a really encouraging homeschool mama that is really about reading aloud to your kids. Like, she has a whole website, a whole thing going on, books, all these things about reading aloud. And it's just so great. And she wrote this book, and it's a really small book, but I have heard nothing but good things about it. And I'm like halfway through already, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm currently reading that. As for book clubs, and so I'm in 2 awesome book clubs that are hosted by booktubers. The first book club is hosted by April over at Getting Hygge with it, and it's through her Patreon page and all of that. And I love supporting other booktubers, and she's just fantastic. She's one of my favorites, which you all know if you've been watching my channel. But January, we had decided to do The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and I have heard good things about this, mostly good things about this book. And let's see, I don't think I would call it like a historical fiction book, but it says it's set kind of from the 1950s to the 1990s. And I think it's kind of a family saga sort of book. So it's about these twin sisters, identical twin sisters, which I would read pretty much anything about identical twins just because I find it so interesting with my identical twins. But it's about 2 sisters that grow up in the South in the 1950s. I think they're African-American family, and then they run away at the age of 16, and they run to kind of different parts of the country, I believe, and they then start families. And they start families in very different ways, is basically what I understand it to be. One of the sisters ends up back in the same small town they grew up in and has a daughter. And then the other sister ends up somewhere else, maybe like California, I'm not quite sure, ends up somewhere else, married to a Caucasian man and has a family as well. And the difference, I think, is that the woman who's married to a Caucasian man is blending in. Like, she's pretending to be Caucasian, which I'm not quite sure if I understand that, but I'm sure I will once I read the book and the other sister's not. She has embraced her African American heritage and is a part of that community. I find that just really interesting, and I'm curious to see how the book plays out, kind of their thought patterns or what's driving each of these sisters to make these choices. So I'm really excited to pick this up. I've heard nothing but good things. So I really want to read this one. And the other book I just used some Christmas money to order for myself, and that's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I know everybody's been talking about and everybody's been loving, and it sounds so good. Again, it's kind of a mess with time sort of book, which I do like. And so the premise of this book, I believe, is sometime in the 1700s, there's this woman who makes a deal with the devil. I think it's to ask for like immortality, and she gets it. But from what I understand, there's a consequence of her dealings with the devil. And the consequence is that nobody she meets will remember her. So no matter if she falls in love or establishes friendships, it doesn't matter. I think throughout her life, nobody remembers that they encounter her, and they all forget her, which sounds terrible. But then I think the story is that someone remembers. She meets somebody and they actually remember her. And I think that's what the story's about. But I have heard good things. It's by V.E. Schwab, and I have enjoyed her writing before. And so I'm excited. I'm so excited to pick this up. So anyway, these are my books for the month, plus a few others that are either coming in the mail or are audio. But I'm so excited. So have you read any of these books? What do you think of them? Let me know. Should I prioritize starting some over others? So let me know below. Also, let me know what you're reading for the month of January. I always am very, very curious, and I love getting more recommendations. So that is what I have for this video. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and I will see you in the next book video. All right, have a wonderful day. All right, take care.